This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make it today with Squarespace. Back in 2002, the world of superhero movies looked nothing like it does today. Spider-Man 1 was taking the world by storm and everybody started to believe in these films again. A lot of these movies were fairly campy and lighthearted, but a movie being worked on in the background away from public eye wanted to change all of that. The film was dark and violent, something audience members wouldn't expect. The film was being formed under the secret title, Asylum. Little did the public know, this movie was actually the original Batman vs. Superman. In the end, everything came crashing down and we never saw this mysterious film. But since then, the script has leaked and today we're going in depth to unravel what exactly happened and what this film would have looked like. Back then, both Superman and Batman were in an odd place. The last real Batman movie was Batman and Robin, and the last Superman film was Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Their characters weren't really in a great place. Warner Brothers had to remind the audience how great these characters were, and with the success of Spider-Man, a movie could do just the job. Our story begins when Andrew Kevin Walker, who was the writer of Seven, came to Warner Brothers with a pitch for a Batman vs. Superman film. It was enjoyed by the executives, but they believed the film was too dark. They did decide that they wanted to go ahead with the idea though. They hired a new writer to rewrite the entire script. Akiva Goldsman, who is a very famous writer in Hollywood, he's the writer of Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, The Fifth Wave, and most recently, The Dark Tower, was hired to do a full rewrite. As you can see from his past work, maybe he wasn't the best choice. But I assume they got him since they thought he knew the character of Batman. After they got the rewritten script, they hired Wolfgang Petersen to direct, whose biggest credit at the time was The Neverending Story. With their new crew, they began working on the film. To avoid any publicity, the movie went under the name Asylum. Some sources even state the movie was going to be titled Batman vs. Superman Asylum, while others state it was going to be titled just Batman vs. Superman. Speaking of conflicting reports, some state that this film was going to continue the Tim Burton Batman universe, ignoring Batman Forever and Batman vs. Robin. Other reports state that it was just going to reboot everything. If the first is true, it's odd that they would hire a man to write for the movie that ignores the other two movies that he wrote. Sometimes I don't understand Warner Brothers. They began casting for the new role of Batman. We never got the official report of the cast, but there were some heavy rumors. Christian Bale was the main person rumored for Batman, and Jude Law was the favorite for Superman. There were also rumors of Matt Damon playing either Batman or Superman. But now that we know how this movie began, what went wrong? What drama happened behind the scenes that ended this movie? David Hughes' amazing book, Tales from Development Hell, The Greatest Movies Never Made, had a full chapter on this movie, and there's a reason why this movie had an entire chapter. It's incredibly interesting. We of course don't know 100% what happened, but these are the heavily implied rumors of what happened. The studio president of Warner Brothers, Alan Horn, was apparently convinced it was better to save both heroes to have their own separate movies. J.J. Abrams came to Warner Brothers with a solo Superman script called Superman Flyby, which eventually turned into Superman Returns. Alan Horn then made copies of the Batman vs. Superman script and J.J. Abrams' Superman Flyby and gave them to all 10 of the Warner Brothers executives, letting them choose which one to make. Apparently every Warner Brothers executive liked J.J. Abrams' version more, except for one man, Warner Brothers Vice President Lorenzo di Bonaventura. Yeah, I know I messed up that name. Lorenzo was still a heavy supporter of Batman vs. Superman. He argued that they could do a team-up movie and then just release the solo Superman film afterwards. J.J. Abrams fought that idea though. Apparently they had many meetings and constantly J.J. Abrams and Lorenzo were fighting over their conflicting ideas. Alan Horn, the man who gave the script to the 10 executives, finally decided that Lorenzo was wrong, and they canceled Batman vs. Superman entirely, instead deciding to go with J.J. Abrams' Superman Flyby. Only a couple days after its cancellation, Lorenzo left his vice president position at Warner Brothers. With Lorenzo gone and the script shelved, we never got to see the Batman vs. Superman film they were working on. David Goyer, who we've talked a lot about on Cutshort, was a strict fighter for not having a Batman vs. Superman movie. When asked about its cancellation in 2005, he had this to say: Batman vs. Superman is where you go when you admit to yourself that you've exhausted all possibilities. It's like Frankenstein meets Wolfman or Freddy vs. Jason. It's somewhat of an admission that your franchise is on its last grasp. About 10 years later, David Goyer then went on to write Batman vs. Superman for Warner Brothers. The script was leaked on the internet and it's not too hard to find. And now that we know what went wrong and what it was going to look like, let's get into the canceled Batman vs. Superman film that divided the executives so much. The movie begins on a fairly depressing note, arguably more depressing than the Batman and Superman that we got. We see the dark and grim city of Metropolis, and it zooms in on the Daily Planet. We see Clark Kent working, and we learn that he used to be married to Lois Lane until she divorced him, not being able to take the stress of being married to the world's strongest man. So a friend of Clark comes to see him and asks him if he wants to go get a drink with everybody. Superman's like, I don't really drink, so no. So his friend leaves and turns around and calls him a dickhead. Yep, off to a good start. After this, we see Superman take out his anger by going to hunt some criminals in the city. Then we cut to see how Bruce Wayne is holding up. Spoiler alert, it's not good. We see old man Bruce Wayne and he's looking fairly grim. He's been retired from being Batman for about 5 years and things never really went his way. Dick Grayson, his Robin, has been killed. Commissioner Gordon has died, Alfred is dead, and even the Joker was killed. Batman has nobody left and he's the grumpiest he's ever been. Until we hear that Batman has found a new love of his life and they're getting married. Woo! Her name is Elizabeth Miller and she's perfect for Batman. Some would say too perfect. And by some, I mean Barbara Gordon literally says it at their wedding, which is the biggest red flag ever, but fine, we'll let it slide. We then see Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne talking to each other. Clark then says to Bruce that Lois and his divorce has been finalized. Wow, good going, Tiger. Tell Bruce more about your painful divorce on his wedding day. So then Bruce and Clark continue to talk, and Bruce tells the story of why he's stopped being Batman. Bruce says to Clark, quote, after Dick was murdered, it stopped being about justice. It started being about revenge. Here's the thing about blood, you develop a taste for it and then a thirst. I was putting them in the hospital and it wasn't enough. I wanted to kill them, each one in that endless parade of freaks. And I knew that if I started killing, I wouldn't stop. You wouldn't understand. It's a weakness we have, a human thing. Jesus, Bruce. But after this heartwarming speech, Bruce and Elizabeth get married with Clark Kent as their best man. Woo! And then Bruce and Elizabeth go on a beautiful honeymoon. Woo! And then Elizabeth is killed by a poison bee. Woo! Wait, what? So a toy bee comes for Elizabeth in the middle of their honeymoon and stings her, injecting her with a poisonous Joker toxin, killing her. After watching this firsthand, Bruce is filled with anger and realizes he needs to stop sitting around and Batman up yet again. He will solve this mystery if it's the last thing that he does. Full of cobwebs, he reignites the Batcave and hologram Alfred shows up. So Alfred's dead, but not really. After this, Superman shows up and tells Batman that he shouldn't be doing this. He shouldn't be trying to get revenge after Elizabeth's death. Batman looks at him in the eyes and says, quote, I'm going to find whoever did this, and when I do, I'm going to take his skin and hang it in front of his eyes. So Superman's like, wow, okay, that's pretty messed up, I'm gonna go. And Batman's like, yeah, you better. After this, Batman goes searching for this copycat Joker who killed Elizabeth, and he meets some criminals on the way. The criminals admit that they're linked to the crime, so Batman beats them almost to death, and then says that the only reason he's not killing them is so they can spread the word that Batman is back. Batman continues to search for any men linked to the crime. He is then met with two other criminals named Jeeves 1 and Jeeves 2. When Batman is about to assault them, the Joker does a handstand flippy thing out of nowhere to reveal that he's still alive. Batman is incredibly surprised. He asks how the Joker is still alive, and the Joker just says he doesn't have time for this. As soon as they're done talking, Joker and his two henchmen begin to beat down on Batman. Hard. Joker is about to kill Batman only to be stopped by Jeeves 1 and 2, leaving Batman how he left his former victims, bloody and beaten down. Superman is out doing his own investigating when he goes to the local prison to question Lex Luthor. He's suspicious on whether or not Lex had anything to do with Elizabeth's death. Lex Luthor drops several bombs on Superman. He tells Superman that he figured out who Batman really is. He's Bruce Wayne. And that he's been trying to pit Batman against Superman for a while now since he can't physically kill Superman in prison. So what's Lex Luthor's way of having them fight? He created clones of the Joker that he ordered to kill Batman's wife Elizabeth because he knew that Batman would lose his mind and start running around killing people, and then he knew that Superman wouldn't put up with this, so he knew that this would lead to Superman having to fight crazy ass Batman. And he knew that Batman was smart enough to kill Superman. Pretty convoluted plan, but I mean, the movie's called Batman vs. Superman, so I guess it worked. So Superman is then like, well, I guess I have to fight Batman and do what Luthor wanted because it's the only way to knock some sense into him. Probably not the only way, but whatever, it'd be way less entertaining if the movie was called Batman and Superman Talk Out Their Differences. So as the film reaches the final climax, Batman goes to kill the Joker for good, but Superman is there to stop him because it's wrong to kill the enemy. Batman reveals that he knew he would be there, so he has kryptonite-laced armor. Batman then decides that Superman is against him, so they begin the fight. They do basically all the same usual punchy punches and the occasional freeze breath and heat vision from the Batman and Superman movie that we got. But remember, Superman is not at his max power because of all the kryptonite. I'm not sure what Joker is doing during this fight, probably having a nice bit of popped kettle corn, maybe filming for that YouTube ad revenue. As the fight rages on, Batman shoots off a kryptonite arrow that impales Superman, leaving him unable to fight. Batman then leaves Superman there and goes to kill the Joker. As he beats him down, the Joker admits that he created Batman's perfect woman, Elizabeth. He did this to turn Batman absolutely crazy when he killed her and break his mind. Batman's spirit is then broken and he gives up. Batman has nothing to live for if he's actually able to turn into this horrible monster from the Joker. Just as the Joker is about to kill Batman, a piece of granite hits Joker right in the stomach, literally folding him in half. That is actually what the script says. I have no idea how he's still alive. We see that Superman was the one who threw it and that he won't let Joker hurt Batman. Joker then sends Jeeves 1 and Jeeves 2 after Batman and Superman, who are now fighting together. They quickly learn that the Jeeves are superpowered, so it will be hard to beat them. But it's their movie, so they do. Batman then goes to kill the Joker for real this time, but decides not to at the final second, showing that they cannot have control over him, leaving a perfect ending for Batman vs. Superman. But it's not over! Lex Luthor then shows up in his power armor out of jail somehow and says he's gonna finish the job. Superman and Batman fight arm in arm to take down Lex Luthor. They send him flying to the ground in a cloud of dust, but when they go to arrest the beaten Luthor, they cannot find him, setting him up as the villain for the sequel. Now friends again, Batman and Superman decide to go out and get a drink together. Batman says, "So, you want to get a beer?" Superman replies, "Maybe a soda or something?" Bruce then says the final line of the film, "Oh my god, what is it with you?" as the film fades to black. So that's the canceled Batman vs. Superman movie that we never got. It's always hard to tell if these movies would have been good or not with just the script, and most likely not the final script at that. Pause the video right here and tell me in the comments if you would have liked this movie or not. For me, I'm not sure. It may be a little bit too much. Maybe it's just the line about Batman wanting to tear a man's skin off, but I don't think I would have been fond of this film. And you have to remember that this would have been eventually finished around 2004, so it's about the time that Spider-Man 2 came out. I'm not sure if it would have been seen with warm reception when the audience seemed to enjoy lighter movies like Spider-Man. In the end, it's up to the individual on whether or not they would have enjoyed this film, but I don't believe it would have been received well by the audience. It's also interesting on how this would have changed the DCEU. Maybe they would have remade Batman vs. Superman, or maybe they wouldn't have done that film at all if we already had one from 2004. No matter what you think of this canceled Batman vs. Superman film, there's no doubt this would have changed the history of comic book movies as we know it. I'd like to thank Squarespace for making this episode possible. Whether or not you want to make a blog, portfolio, or online store, Squarespace gives you the tools you need to make a beautiful website with no patches, upgrades, or installs required. And their great selection of designer templates and award-winning customer service makes launching your brand quicker and easier than ever before. Sign up today at squarespace.com/cutshort to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Use this code to help keep this channel going and make your website beautiful.
Yeah, yo. They said that I would never make it and fall too short of a victory. Now I'm king of my city, penthouse sipping Hennessy, drowning my doubt in this liquor. See myself in the mirror, praying to God, hope my talent delivers. Been at the bottom of this barrel for far too long, just an outcast lost in this world, trying to belong, searching for